If God knows everything we're going to do in the future, then we don't have free will. But we do. If God doesn't know everything we're going to do in the future, then he's not really omniscient.
God doesn't see what you will do like a video depicting all your actions. He simply knows what you would do in any situation.
God couldn't stop a murder when there were only 4 people on Earth.
What he fails to consider is most of Genesis is simply metaphor and symbolic storytelling. So when theologians look at stories such as Cain and Abel, they're not thinking, oh, this actually happened historically. They're thinking, no, the Bible writers obviously were trying to tell a story, and they're obviously trying to convey a point, and sometimes the best way to convey a point is through a story. So no, the story of Cain and Abel didn't actually happen historically, so there was no murder to stop.
If we're supposed to be God's special creatures, then the universe is full of a lot of wasted space.
You say wasted space from a human perspective, but at the end of the day, if God is infinite, why should his creations be small or limited? Imagine telling an artist that their giant mural is wasted paint because you only like one corner of it. Although he brings up an interesting point, I don't think this proves or disproves why you should believe in God.
Myth of a great flood and a virgin birth were around long before Jesus came around. Maybe those are just elements of an interesting story.
I think this might be the first good point this man has brought up. A lot of the Bible has seemingly fictional stories, and although they may seem as such, there isn't inherently a problem with using symbolic storytelling to try and convey a message. Consider a quote from Peter Enns, an American theologian. God lets his children tell the story. Many Christians believe in God, but not necessarily as it pertains to the Bible, because at the end of the day, humans are fallible, and God is not.
Virgins can't get pregnant. Not without modern medicine, anyway.
This was clearly a supernatural act done by God.
Michelle Bachmann and Sarah Palin? Christian. Barney Frank? Not a Christian. God seems to agree with you about everything. Isn't that a coincidence? And isn't it also a coincidence that God seems to agree with all those Christians who also disagree with you?
Bruh.
If you ever wrote a book with that many contradictions in it, your publishers would have to pull it from the shelves.
You know, I have to give him credit. He's completely right. If you, meaning singular, meaning one person, wrote a book with that many contradictions, it would certainly be weird. However, this is obviously false. The Bible is a combination of 66 books written by different people, so this completely nullifies his point.
If God made us in his image, why do we have vestigial body parts and organs that often fail?
Genesis 1, verse 27 reads, God created mankind in his own image. Image is a funny word, because the way he's interpreting it, we should all be God, since God created us in his image, which implies all of God's traits are in man. But obviously, image doesn't have to mean physical form. It can simply mean that he created us as he saw fit. Many theologians also interpret this as meaning things that supersede physical traits, like our consciousness or our soul.
99.9% of all the species God ever supposedly created are extinct. How many do-overs does God need?
As a person who seeks the truth and nothing but the truth, I must concede this point because I believe the problem of animal suffering and the problem of natural diseases and disasters is one that Christian apologetics cannot answer, and I will die on that hill. So I will not try and make up some excuse to try and defend that.
God doesn't exist because I said so. What, you don't like that reason? Because that's the same reason a lot of parents and pastors give to children to convince them God does exist.
I agree. I don't think kids should be indoctrinated with any belief system, whether that be religion, atheism, Marxism, whatever, right? They should figure out what they believe on their own. But this is not a reason to stop believing in God.
The Holocaust.
Human free will.
The proof people give for why God exists is so often based on their personal experiences. God spoke to them. They feel God. They just know God.
Religious experiences can often cause people to know that their religion is true, but they cannot show other people that their religion is true. As William Lane Craig differentiates in his book Reasonable Faith, So yes, he is right. If people show their own religious experiences as proof that their religion is true, they would be wrong.
Too many of God's followers, using Bible verses to support their beliefs, have made life worse for other people.
Once again, how people behave has no correlation to the religion that they justify their actions with. Like, you don't need an organized religion to justify killing. You can do that yourself.
No matter what Ray Comfort says, God didn't create bananas to look like this. They evolved this way without God's help.
Now, Ray Comfort has said a lot of things, and one of them being that it's a rather terrible argument in my opinion, but he says like bananas were designed to be user friendly for humans. But just because an argument is stupid doesn't mean what they're arguing for is stupid, if you get what I'm saying. So people can have bad arguments about good things.
Every time science and religion go head to head, science wins.
Well, that's fine to say, but oftentimes science and religion don't have to go head to head. They can coexist, with one offering the meaning of the physical world, while the other can explain things that transcend the physical realm, like how we ground morality and consciousness, etc. Also, this fails to mention that God is the creator of science and the universe. So perhaps science can debunk biblical claims. It cannot disprove anything about the actual existence of God, since God is a prerequisite to science.
You don't need God to be a good person. Just cut out the middleman.
And you would be absolutely correct. You don't need God to be a good person. However, you need God to define what good is.
People have been saying Jesus is coming back during their lifetime for many, many, many lifetimes. He's not coming back. It's time to move on. God works in mysterious ways is typically a euphemism for stop asking hard questions.
I believe these 2 points slum together because they both come from the same point. People can be wrong, and this says nothing about their religion.
Between tornadoes in Oklahoma, droughts in Texas, and hurricanes in Alabama, there sure are a lot of natural disasters in the places that God supposedly loves.
Although I did mention earlier that I could not provide a truthful defense for the problem of natural disasters, there is one theory coined by Isaac Luria called divine withdrawal. The theory essentially entails that when humanity rebelled against God, he essentially stopped monitoring Earth and he let natural processes unravel by themselves, which causes natural disasters, diseases, all that sort of thing. And at first glance, it seems to make sense, but if you really think about it, why would God, omnibenevolent by the way, why would he punish animals and innocent, future children with like leukemia because of what the humans did today, for example? Like when they rebelled against God, why not punish them? Why punish everything to come in the future for like a small percentage of the population making a mistake? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, a lot of people say that he didn't directly cause any suffering, but I would say that imagine you see someone drowning in the river, right? You're not causing their suffering, but by doing nothing and watching and letting them drown, you're causing preventable suffering. And that's essentially what God is doing in this theory.
You were made in God's image. Except for your foreskin, apparently. You need to cut that off.
A few problems with this. In the Old Testament, it is true that every male must be circumcised, but in the New Testament, Jesus shifted the idea of Christianity from an ethnic identity to a faith in Christ. Thus, circumcision was no longer necessary to profess your faith in Christ. This is fairly clear in Galatians 5, verse 6. For in Jesus Christ, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any value. The only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. So, his point is completely nullified. And that is where the video ends. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe for more content.